Welcome to the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapons series. I am your host, Captain Matt. Today we are talking 5 ways that buying a boat is different than buying a car. So many people go into the boat buying experience and expect it to be just like buying a car, and then they're shocked or thrown off guard, or even sometimes it can ruin their experience because they think it should be the same. I'm going to give you the 5 big ways that I think it's different that can come in handy so you understand what you're getting into. So, I don't know why I'm so out of breath. As always, we are brought to you by Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit, a free toolkit that we offer. It's available at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit. Got all sorts of information, a calculator, talk about boat insurance. It's something that a lot of people email us and say, hey, that was incredibly valuable. Thanks for that. And we used it when buying our perfect boat. So, number one big way that they're different is based off the number of units sold. So, in 2019, there were about 280,000 new boats sold. So, these are all power boats, personal watercraft. In 2019, there were 16.7 million cars and trucks sold, light cars and trucks, so it doesn't count big or heavy equipment. That is about, I don't know what the math is there, but it is a lot less. And because of that, it means that things aren't as automated. There's not as much inventory. The manufacturing process is much more handmade than automated. The companies are significantly smaller. On the used side, in 2019, there were 975,000 used boats sold. There were over 40 million light cars and trucks sold. So just the sheer number of units out there are less, which kind of makes sense. But here is something very interesting. There are over 100 boat manufacturers that I was able to kind of accumulate that are building boats right now. There are only 30 light car and truck manufacturers in the U.S. 100 versus 30, and you're looking at less than 10% of, or probably, 2% of the number of vehicles versus the number of boats. So there's a lot of diversity, and this shows it even more. When you look at the segmentation, so not only are there fewer boats built than cars and trucks, which everybody knows, you just know it, you may not think about it, what you're going to buy, but this is even more interesting. There were only 55,668 pontoons sold in 2019. There's 37 pontoon manufacturers, and I got that from the Discover Boating website. So there's very small manufacturers. Even the largest manufacturer is maybe building 2,000 or 3,000 boats. It's incredibly small, and there's several that are only building a couple hundred. Center consoles, almost 56,000 sold, but 58 center console builders. That's even more segmented. Bow riders, there's 9,441 sold. That number used to be the majority, bow riders and deck boats, fishing skis, and now that number is down under 10,000. And yet there's still over 40 manufacturers. Now, several of them are putting outboards on them, and they're doing different things. And building other types of boats as well, but that is it's the segmentation is incredible. Aluminum fishing boats, 47,000 only, 36 manufacturers. Wake boats, only just under 11,000 wake boats sold by 10 different manufacturers. So that's, if everybody's doing equal, that's only 1,000 boats each. Or even if it's, the 80-20 principle is in play, the top 2 manufacturers are maybe doing 4,000 each, and everybody else is picking up the slack. What I know about the industry is it's relatively evenly. It's not quite that drastic. cruisers, there were only 2,074 cruisers sold in 2019. Personal watercraft, this is 72,000 personal watercraft sold amongst 3 manufacturers. Sailboats, houseboats, jet boats, electric boats, all under 5,000 and very few manufacturers. So what that means is everything is very segmented. So you don't just go and say, I want this one in black with this motor and these options, and I want it tomorrow. That's not how it works. These manufacturers build all throughout the fall and the winter to stock the dealers for the spring. Then they continue shipping boats in the spring. They're building ordered boats that people order at the boat shows, and it can take 6 to 8 to 10 weeks in normal times for an ordered boat to be built and delivered. So it's not like you go and you get a Mercedes and you say, hey, I want this Mercedes in black, and they say, oh, okay, well, we've got 100 of them sitting at the factory ready to go. We'll have it to you tomorrow or by the end of the week. In the boating world, it's, I want this one this way. Okay, we can do that for you, but it'll be 6 to 8 to 10 weeks. That's assuming that all the supply chain is working normal. Like, that's normal. It can be even longer as you get into some of the busy times, if there's any shortages, like with the COVID crisis, if there's trade issues with China, where some of the components are coming from, if there's motor issues like there were a couple years ago with Yamaha and Mercury, there can be hiccups, which is going to extend that time. So it's important to know if you're going to order a boat, it can take longer. If you want exactly what you want, it can take longer. It can also, on the part side, that several of the components are coming from the same manufacturer for different brands of boats, but some, the brands make themselves and they're customized for their boats. So 5 years from now, if that boat only, so if a manufacturer built 5,000 boats, but they have 20 different models and sizes, maybe they don't use that component on every one. They may only build 1,000 in any one particular model, or 500 is more common in any one particular model. And now finding that part for your 232 may be difficult a couple years down the line. If you're buying used, it can be problematic too. Hopefully there's an aftermarket company that comes in and picks up the slack. But that segmentation, I think, is important to know, and not many people think about it, because if you're a boater or you're into boating, you know the industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but what you may not know is that it's segmented out so much, and then you add the segmentation based on local. So pontoons in the Midwest look different than the pontoons that are sold at the coast. Aluminum fishing boats throughout the different types of fishing can be drastically different in the way that they look at the components. That's important. So all of those things add up to a very segmented and a much smaller, more mom and pop type organizations, and you'll find that when you shop. So what else is different? Well, the titling process is different. When you go to buy a car, you buy the car, you do the paperwork, you got a title for the car, and you're off and running. Well, on a boat, you've got a title for the boat, you've got a title for the trailer, and you've got a title for the motor if it's an outboard motor. Okay? Now, some states, they may not title the trailer. So some states, they may not title the boat specifically. More and more, they're doing that, and that's becoming less of it. But if there's an older boat that's being sold, maybe when that person bought that boat, it wasn't titled. I'm showing this 60-foot Larson here because this happens to be my family's first boat. I found the picture on the internet, and I was like, oh my God, that's the first boat we had, a 16-foot Larson tri-hull. Ours had an 85 Mercury on it, and man, we loved that boat. But the important thing to know is if you're buying used, you're going to have a boat, motor, and trailer are each going to have their own individual titles. If you have twin engines, each motor will have its title. So you may have 4 or 5 different title pieces, and it's really important to get all of those serial numbers right. All of the years could be different because they're packaged up. The boat's built, they pick a motor off the pile and put that on. They pick a trailer out of the lot and they put that on. And they may be different years, and especially if it's a used boat, over time, maybe they put a new trailer under it, maybe they repower the motor. But those years can be different. Just because it's a 1974 Larson 1650 Shark doesn't mean it's a 1974 Mercury, doesn't mean it's a 1974 Dilly trailer. So pay attention to that so you know what you got. And then also, you're going to have to register the boat and motor with the DMV, with the DNR, or your wildlife group, whatever it is in your state. The trailer has to be titled with the DMV. So you've got two different organizations that you're potentially dealing with as well, and each of them is going to have their own requirements on what you need to get your registration and your title in your name. So pay attention to that as well. The next thing that's different, and this it can catch people after the fact, and I want them to know before. If you go out and you buy a Mercedes and you buy it in Athens, Georgia, and you move to Lafayette, or you find a great deal in Athens and you bring it back to Lafayette, that Lafayette Mercedes dealership is going to service you, and they're going to be happy to do it, and they're going to fit you in. Because they make a lot of money in their service department. They have a lot of capacity because they can do service year-round. On the boat side, if you go out and you buy a Bennington and you go to a dealer that's 500 miles away and you bring that boat back to your home area that you're going to be boating, and you walk into your dealer, to the dealership, and you say, hey, I need you to fix this warranty claim. They're going to say, well, but we didn't sell that boat. You're going to say, but it's a Bennington with a Yamaha, and you're a Bennington and Yamaha dealer. And they're going to say, oh, but we can't get you in for 6 weeks, for 8 weeks, for 10 weeks. We can't get you in at all. We're just booked up. That can happen because the service department at a boat dealership, it's very seasonal, right? Everybody needs to winterize at the same time. Everybody wants to be ready for the water and summarized at the same time. Everybody boats over the same 6-month period, and that's when all the repairs need to happen. And in the wintertime, when nobody's boating and the water's frozen over and it's too cold, nobody has work for the dealer. So they, by nature of the business, they have to prioritize. In most cases, there's a few large dealers that are really good about servicing everybody, but there's the opportunity for the dealer to say, hey, we can't service you. Had you bought your boat from us, then we could have helped you out. But because you went out and you tried to save some money, we don't have the ability to service you here. And they're right, because if they could have made that money, you chose to save it, now you expect them to service you. Well, in most cases, they're not going to take care of you, and you're going to be on your own, and you can trailer your boat that 500 miles. So that local dealership matters when you're buying a boat. You may say it's not fair, it's not right, but that's the way it is in the industry, and you're going to be hard-pressed to go to the manufacturer and say, hey, we bought this boat at this dealer 100 miles away, and now our local dealer's not taking care of us. They're going to say, well, our agreement with our dealers is they're only supposed to sell a boat in this geographic area. So the dealer that sold you that boat and gave you a great deal, it could get in trouble. They may have to pay a portion of the profits to your local dealer. There's a lot of weird inner workings that go on. But as a consumer, what you need to understand is, if you go out of your market area to buy a boat to save some money, your service experience is likely going to be unsatisfactory with your local dealer. So I really encourage you to work with your local dealer and try to make the deal happen. Go shop 500 miles away, but come back to your dealer and say, hey, listen, ABC dealership has the same exact boat with the same exact options, and they're going to sell it to me for this much, and here's the quote. Would you be willing to sell it for that same amount? And put the pressure on them, but understand that there's value in having a good relationship with your local dealer. Next, the process is longer. you can walk in to the car dealership and you can walk in cold. They've never talked to you before. You can look at the lot. You can pick out the car. You can test drive the car. You can negotiate price. You can get your financing locked in. You make a phone call to your insurance company, and you can drive off the lot that same day or the next day. Okay, everything's super easy. Just boom, boom, boom. A lot of it's automated. The process of buying a boat is longer. You walk in the dealership, and most dealerships, especially if they're not on the water, and you look at the boat, you talk to the salesperson, you figure out, yes, I like this boat. They're likely not going to have that boat ready for the water, or it's going to be too long of a process. They don't have the manpower in some cases to get that boat ready for the water. In some cases, it may not be rigged with a motor. It may not even have a battery in it. If it does have the motor, it may not have a battery, it may not have fuel, may not have run through the service department to get it ready for the water, because it's not like a car where you drive it off, you back it off the truck and it's ready to go. A boat has to be rigged and prepared by the dealer in almost every situation. Yamaha jet boats are one of the few boats that come off the truck, add gas, and you're ready to go. Most of them, there's a process that has to go through the service shop for an hour or two, check for anything that may have happened in the transport, fix everything up, get the battery, get the fuel, maybe rig the motor, hook up some, put oil in the engine potentially. So there's a lot of things that have to happen. So that test drive portion can slow it down. Even if the boat's all ready to go, they still have to get that boat in the water. And if they're not on the water, that can be, I have some dealers that I know that it's a 2-hour process to get the boat hooked up, ready to go, drive 45 minutes to the lake, get it put in, tied up, ready for the customer, and then they've got to go back another 45 minutes plus the 45 minutes for the demo. And so that's a 2-hour process, and they may not have the manpower to handle that. So it's got to be scheduled and done at a different time. The other thing that can take longer is just the overall negotiation. If you have a trade, now you got to bring your boat in, and they've got to inspect it for the trade process to give you a value to make sure that the boat is the value that they say it is. They got to go through the engine and check that all out. That can be a longer process because it's not like a car dealership where they've got the capacity to put that in the shop, have somebody look at it. Those service technicians in the shop are working their butt off to get people back on the water for the weekend in most cases, and they don't have the time necessarily to go through your boat on a Friday afternoon. They're trying to get that done for their clients. So that on Monday or Tuesday, they might have time to do it, and it can just take a little bit longer. The other thing that takes longer is the financing. Financing is different as well. First of all, the down payment on a car, you don't have to put any money down on a lot of cars if you have good credit. No money down or little money down, and you're off and running. On a boat, you're looking at 10 to 20% down. 10% on new with great credit, maybe 20% on some used boats. It is very common. The rates are low on boats, but they're very low on cars, especially new cars. Oftentimes, those rates are subsidized by the manufacturers themselves. That's very uncommon in the boating world. Yamaha jet boats, Yamaha Boats Group does it. Formula has done it in the past, but those are the only two that I've seen over the years that have done it. Where in the car industry, it's very common. Now, the terms on the boats, they'll go 10 to 20 years. They'll go 15 years on anything over 25,000 typically. Over 100,000, they'll go out to 20 years because they know a boat's going to hold its value. And if you've got good credit, the collateral is going to hold its value. They're very comfortable with you having 10% down going out 20 years. Now, on a car, although the down payment's low, the 3 to 7 years is what you're typically seeing. Sometimes you're seeing 8 now, but so that $30,000 car may have the same payment as an $80,000 boat because you can stretch that term out a little bit more. And the time for approval, this is a big one. You go to a car dealership, you pick the car, you test drive it, you love it, you go in, they hit their buttons, and they have an instant approval, and the paperwork is ready to go, and you can sign and be out that day. on a boat, even if they have an internal finance department or a great relationship with the lender, it can take a day to get through the process, or even as much as 5 days if they have to collect some documentation, because a boat is not a necessity like a car. The reasoning is if you stop making payments on your car, now you don't have any transportation, you can't get to work, so you're unlikely to let that happen. If you're having financial troubles and you can't make your payments on the boat, well, maybe you don't get to go out with the family, but it's easier to let a boat go, so the approval process is more stringent. They need more documentation, and they're a little bit more cautious as well. And we talked about it in the first slide, is 280,000 boats sold versus 16, 17 million cars sold. If they have to repossess that boat, there's fewer places to get rid of it. It's more difficult. Everything is more difficult. So those are the areas where cars are different than boats. YouTube has recommended a few videos for you. We'd love to subscribe. Hit that subscribe now button. Leave a comment if you have something that you would say, hey, this is another area I found. I would love to hear it. We update these videos periodically. Grab your toolkit, and you can also get our magic money saving method at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.